Hey, what's going on there, guys? I'm here on behalf of MTG Madness, and we're here for a Theros draft. And luckily enough, we have our first pack here, and we have Elspeth Sun's Champion. So that above everything in this pack is what we are going to first pick here. So we are actually in a draft Swiss, and we are going to be playing all three rounds, regardless of whether we do well or we scrub out. That way being so that we at least get some content for all three of these rounds, and that I show you guys the entire draft process. And whether we do well or we do poorly, the purpose of this video being that we can at least learn something from the draft and from playing these games and actually further our knowledge with Magic the Gathering and get a little bit better every time we do a draft. So what do we have here in terms of picks? So Triton Tactics, Breaching Hippocamp, Time Defeat, Grave Merchant, Silent Artisan, God's Willing. Well, honestly, Grave Merchant and Time Defeat look like the best cards out of here. Breaching Hippocamp here as well. However, I tend to gravitate a little bit more towards green and sometimes towards black whenever I'm drafting. So I think that Grey Merchant is something that we're going to go for. And we have another Grey Merchant. Interesting. So, with Theros drafting, Theros is a set that rewards forced drafting to a certain degree. Not necessarily where you're drafting certain pieces, but certain colors just because you see like a hint or two of them being open. You force yourself into those colors. And you get rewarded for it, and I think this is where we are just going to go for our Grey Merchants and just make the best of it. So Kragma Warcaller is awesome in red-black Minotaurs. Of course, it's a Lord. If you're able to draft a Rageblood Shaman, then Warcaller and any of the Fellhide Minotaurs and other stuff that you draft just ends up being so good. I think what we're going to take is Bloodtool Harpy here. I mean, it's just going to go for our two Grey Merchants. And Orzhov is definitely not a bad thing to be playing here. The more black permanents that we can draft, the better. And we have Laguna Ban, Elder. Observant Alcid is here as well. And it's a matter of whether we want to gain the life or we want a card that is basically going to have two modes. The two modes being where we can play it early or we can play it late game for the Vigilance. And I actually think I'm going to take the Alcid here. Not because it's foil or anything, but just because of the fact that it's a pretty solid card, actually. Warrior's Lesson and Time Defeat are getting passed around. It looks like green really isn't being picked up that well. I mean, Warrior's Lesson is a great card, and it enables Heroic very well for one green, and you can enable two Heroics off of it. However, for some reason, it doesn't seem like green is either. It's not very present in the packs, or people just aren't gravitating towards it. Out of our cards here in black and white, we don't really see anything that really stands out. I guess Boon of Erebos is alright. Pharaoh's Warden, Citizen Griffin, and Yoked Ox, they really aren't that impressive either, so we'll take Boon. Glare of Heresy is it's alright. Traveling Philosopher is alright as a 2/2 for 2. We have Silent Artisan, which is not really much more amazing or anything. So, I mean, all the cards are pretty subpar at this point, and we're 6 picks in. So, we can either go for more white. We can take the removal with Glare of Heresy, which I'm pretty much inclined to do. There's no real reason why we need a 2/2 for 2. I'd rather have the removal in case we run into any decks that are playing white. As for the things that are remaining out of here, I'm going to hate Giraffe Rage of Purphoros being probably the most threatening thing out of here, being a removal spell that deals 4 to target creature. It can't be regenerated and you get the Scry 1 off of it. Just the fact that it's removal, it's pretty worthy of being hate drafted. We also have Last Breath, which is pretty alright, being able to have it as removal. Out of here, Hunt the Hunter. We don't have to worry about that card because we're not playing green. Two-Headed Cerberus is kind of annoying and if people are playing a very aggressive red deck. However, I think we just take Silent Artisan. Crone Hoplite, Spearpoint Oreod, Messenger Speed, and Yoked Ox. I mean, again, none of these cards are very threatening. Oreod's probably the most threatening thing if your opponent's able to make it bigger. So I think I'll just hate draft that. And then again, we get another Yoked Ox, so might as well take the Yoked Ox at this point. Stymied Hopes, Commune with the Gods. I'd rather take Stymied Hopes, I guess. Affairs Warden. And Island. So we're probably not going to play blue out of here. I would love to force myself into more black permanents to capitalize on these gray merchants that we have, but Elspeth Sun's Champion is far too good to not be played. So we need to have some sort of splash of white at least, or if not a core color in white, and then figure something out with gray merchants. I mean, gray merchant definitely does scale based on how much black you've drafted. It's going to pretty much determine how big his drains are going to be. But I don't know, we'll see. We still have 2 packs remaining, and so far we're pretty good. Underworld Cerberus, wow. 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 That's definitely not something that I want anybody else to have. Insatiable Harpy is something that I would love to pick up. Cavern Lampad's pretty alright. Wingsteed Rider's pretty alright in Heroic. Another time to feed there. Arena Athlete's somewhat annoying as well. Battleized Valor is good for the Heroic enabling. I think Underworld Cerberus is just what needs to be hate drafted here. There's Magma Jet, Return Centaur, Rage of Perforos, Skull Cleaver, Staunch Hearted Warrior. So where we could go from this is we could just end up switching and going red-black to be able to play Underworld Cerberus on our Grey Merchants. We already have 1 removal. We can take another spot of removal, because our white's not really that good here. It honestly isn't. Return Centaur is probably going to go and wheel for us, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go out on a limb here and probably either take the Magma Jet or the Rage of Perforos and then see where that buys us. Magma Jet's really good for the Scry, but Rage of Perforos is really good for a little bit higher end removal. However, Magma Jet, just for the cost of the card, is pretty on spot, and it gets rid of a lot of stuff, so we'll take that. Fanatic of Mogus, however, is... wow. It is definitely trying to shift us a lot of different directions here. There's also Divine Verdict in white, which is pretty playable. We could take the Divine Verdict and hope to draft more white, or we can take Fanatic and... I don't know. We'll actually take Fanatic here, because Fanatic's much more backbreaking than a Divine Verdict is. I mean, Divine Verdict can make or break a game, but Fanatic Amogus much more so. And if people have been picking up a lot of red, then I definitely won't want to be giving them a Fanatic Amogus anywhere around the people that have been passing things and picking things up. And then we have another Fanatic Amogus. Why? Why? Wow. That's just so nuts. Wow. Yeah, let's go for it. Wow. We can get Fleshmat Steed, Cerberus, Acroan Crusader, Demolish. Well, Demolish, no. Boon of Erebos is there as well. Because we haven't really gotten anything that will enable Heroic, Acroan Crusader is kind of out of the question, or at least a little bit more out of the question than I would think. Wild Cerberus destroys artifacts. But that's pretty likely to wheel. So we'll get the Steed. We get the Steed there. Borderland Minotaur is something that we probably want to pick up. There's not a whole lot of white here. Yeah, we'll take Minotaur. It plays into our 2 Fanatics. Out of here, black is very open as well. Wow. So our creatures get Haste and Intimidate, where we can get our 4-drop. So here I'm torn between Disciple of Fenax and Mogus' Marauder, and it really just depends on how aggressive we want to be or how passive we want to be. The thing that really appeals to me is the double black in the mana symbols for Disciple, and also the Hand Disruption. So it's something that we get 2 of them now. So yeah, we get 2. From here, two-headed Cerberus, Wild Cerberus. Um, what do we take? Well, the two-headed Cerberus, without anything on it, without any pants to put on the Cerberus, is not really that amazing. However, I think the Cerberus are probably just fine. We could always hate draft a two-headed Cerberus, but I don't know. I don't know if that's really what needs to be done. So we'll just take Cerberus. We're going to go out on a limb with that one. Then we have Skull Cleaver, Return Centaur, and Freakus Cure. Those are all possibilities for us. Swan Song, I mean, Swan Song is not really that amazing and limited. I mean, it can counter things, but let's go. Let's go a little bit more aggressive. We'll go Minotaur, Skull Cleaver. We do get the ability to play Sip of Hemlock, which is yet another removal spell for us. So it turns out that hate drafting cards like Rage of Perforos ended up being very useful for us because we're pretty on color now. I mean, we can either just go straight red, black, or we can try to find a way to mix things in. We have Vanquish the Foul. But I think what we're probably going to want to do here is to just stay with red, black. I mean, getting 2 Fanatics in a row is just pretty unreal. And not to mention just the fact that we got Elspeth in an Underworld Cerberus in a draft. That's nuts. So here, Lightning Strike is probably the first thing that stands out to me. Daxos and Maletes is really good. That's a really good card for limited. It's pretty much it's a shame that this card doesn't see play in Constructed, but I mean, there's a reason why he can. It's a pretty weak and flimsy card whenever it comes to Constructed. But it's still a really sweet card. I really like the abilities that it has and all. So Lightning Strike's where we're going to take. The rest of the pack doesn't really appeal to us. We want to be picking up things that are just going to help us at this point. And out of here, there is a Scryland, Tormented Hero, and Fleshmad Steed again. Well, Tormented Hero for the first time, but Fleshmad Steed for the second time. Nylea's Disciple was really annoying in green, and I hope that whoever's drafting green is not going very heavy with it. But really, right here, it's between the Steed and the Tormented Hero. And it's a matter of whether we want a 2/2 for 2 or a 2/1 for 1 that gets tapped down. And I think we'll just take the Tormented Hero here. We have a Flamespeaker Adept, which is pretty sweet. Lash of the Whip, which is more removal for us. Whenever we scry, we get to pump him up. But it's a solid 3-drop for us. Another Nylea's Disciple, which I'm so disappointed in seeing those being passed. Lash of the Whip may not be necessary for us. We'll take Flamespeaker. Cutthroat Maneuver, however, is very good. Kragma Warcaller. Ugh. Do we have... I guess we have Minotaur Skull Cleaver. Oh, wow. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I didn't realize that. I always forget that Fanatic Amogus is a Minotaur. So, wow. Kragma Warcaller with Fanatic Amogus and Minotaur Skull Cleavers. And I don't think we have any Minotaurs in black now. However, that is still a 5-drop for us. It plays into Fanatic Amogus, plays into Great Merchant of Asphodel. It's just great overall. And if we can pick up, like, any of the 3-drop, 2/3 vanilla Minotaurs, that would be just fine. I mean, at this point, we're pretty much just looking for filler. Yeah, but I definitely forgot that Fanatic Amogus was a Minotaur, so good for that. And we also have Borderland Minotaur, so that's another additional awesome thing for us. Spearpoint Oreod, yet another Nylea's Disciple. Wow. I think... Do we take the Oreod? We'll hide white. 3-drop or 2-drop? I guess both our Grey Merchant and our Fanatic drain. But Color sort. Guess we'll take our Oreod. I do like the first strike. The Steed is basically a bear with a downside to it. We do have Deathbell Raider, which is just nuts. And Underworld Cerberus is a Hound. Yeah, let's take our Deathbell Raider. Then we have a Borderland Minotaur. We have Cutthroat Maneuver. So we have 18 creatures out of 23 picks here. Now the question is, do we take Cutthroat Maneuver or Borderland Minotaur? And I think we just still want the Minotaur. We have Read the Bones and another Minotaur in Dragon Mantle. Let's go for another Minotaur. And Viper's Kiss. We're a Crone Crusader. Not really worried about Viper's Kiss. I'm not really worried about any of these cards here. Not even Mnemonic Wall. So, Crone Crusader. Spark Jolt, Prowler's Helm, Cavalry Pegasus, probably the most threatening thing. And what else? What else will we be gifted at the end of this? At the end of this draft? And I think I even mentioned that the first time that we got Kragma Warcaller, that red-black Minotaurs is just dumb. It's just a great thing to be able to go and draft. And now we're essentially doing it. We're living the dream here. Hunter we don't have to worry about. Ban Elder, I guess we do. Loathsome Kotobla Pass. Nah, it's not worth it. Might as well take the Rambler. We may not play it. Fleshmad Steed again. Or Cavalry Pegasus. We'll take the Cavalry Pegasus. Only on principle, because I've seen what Cavalry Pegasus can do in terms of being out of hand. And if our opponent has... I don't think that anybody has drafted like a Tribal Human Cavalry Pegasus type thing. But I definitely don't want to give anybody the opportunity to be able to use that against me. Rather than a Fleshmad Steed, which I'm far from worried about seeing against me. But I feel very, very confident with what we have just drafted, especially our Borderland Minotaurs and our Fanatics and our Grey Merchants. That was just very awesome. So now we have our deck building. So we'll drag this down and start taking a look at things. So Underworld Cerberus was a very awesome thing to pick up in a pinch. Disciple of Fenax is going to get played. Grey Merchant's going to get played as well. Things out of red: Deathbell Raider, Magma Jet, Lightning Spike, or Lightning Strike, not Spike. Minotaur Skullcleaver, or Oreods might get played, or more than likely will get played. Our Fanatics will definitely get played, along with our Borderland Minotaurs, Rage of Perforos, and that brings us to 16. So we'll go by converted mana cost. Out of here, Blood Toll Harpy will get played. Flame Speaker Adept. We have a few cards that allow us to scry, but it's just pretty much a solid 3-drop for us. We'll see where it goes and works its way into things. We'll play our 2 Oreods because they're good early game and they're good late game as well. And we're probably aiming for 17 lands here because we're kind of split between 2 colors. Carving out and topping at 5, I probably would be inclined to play 16 if we were only playing 1 color, but since we're kind of split between 2, 17 is probably the better call. So we have 4 slots that we can use. So we might as well take Sip of Hemlock because it's a pretty awesome removal spell at 6 mana. It's pretty costly, but it's worth it, I think. Our Flamespeaker Adept can get played, and then 2 cards left. We can go for Tormented Hero and Fleshmad Steed. So, converted mana cost. This looks pretty good. Magma Jet can get put right there. So, Magma Jet. Nothing out of 3 drops for non-creatures. Nothing out of 4 drops. Rage of Perforos is here. And Sip of Hemlock. So yeah, that looks about right. So we're very, very creature heavy, which is not a bad thing because we're playing essentially devotion based. So our Grey Merchants will scale off of however many permanents we're able to get off for us, but they're still worth it. Whether it's 2 or 4 or 6, the Grey Merchants are definitely worth it on top of the drains and damage dealt with Fanatic of Mogus. So, yeah, let's add some lands and get this going. So suggest, that sounds about right, 8 and 9 here. Yeah, so that looks about right for us. So, pretty content with this, actually. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully we can win our rounds. Either way, very happy with this draft and how it worked. Very happy with the picks, especially the Elspeth that we got to grab and Underworld Cerberus. And now let's go into our rounds and submit.